Hello everyone, SirMonkeySuit Zappy here back again with Hunter x Hunter. We're on episode 69, so that's great, now I'm demonetized. Anyway, in the last episode, we met up with Hisoka again, because that was inevitably going to happen all the time. I feel like in every arc he's just going to show up. I feel like he has to, because he's always there to sort of stir on that potential of both Gon and Killua, so he's always going to turn up. And yeah, he basically was talking with Gon Killua about why he was there, and he was obviously like telling some sort of false truths in a way. He was sort of lying to them about the reasons why he was there through the context of truth. So it's not like he was totally lying. He's kind of just changing the story, tweaking it a bit. And Killua had figured out exactly what was happening. However, when there was the perfect evidence to sort of put the nail in the coffin and figure it out, like absolutely, Hisoka came up with his Tetra Surprise and put it on the book where, so yeah. I didn't know that he was able to use a Tetra Surprise on something with that, because I feel like I guess you can't use Nen with it, but that's more of a, like, something to place over it, so I guess it still works in that regard. And yeah, so he's gotten Killua sort of off the scent, so to speak. And yeah, so I think they're gathering people, a group of people again to, because eventually they have to go up against Razor, right? So yeah, I feel like they should get the Phantom Troop in there, but whether that happens or remains to be seen, we'll just have to wait and see. And they're also now in the City of Love, which is let's just call it the City of Tropes, to be honest, because that's what it is. but yeah, I don't think there's anything else really to talk about. We're going to get in episode 69 and see what we get. So without further ado, let's go. Okay, episode 69, right? I had to go back through just a little bit just to make sure that I got all of the rules right, because well, there was one in particular that I think is a bit odd. It's the one where, well, it's where they're talking about obviously the cushion effect, and I have no problem with any of them aside from the third one that they talk about, which is like, if you hit an opposing player and then it somehow bounces back, but then it hits one of your team members and then drops, then only one of your team's out. I guess then the whole idea is that, because the thing that they obviously didn't mention, I guess, was the idea of where the ball actually drops. You know what I mean? Because then I guess it only really means that a person who has been hit by a ball can only be out if it hits on your side of the court. Like, if it drops to the floor on your side of the court. Surely, right? Because then otherwise I feel like both A and C, who they were talking about, would have been eliminated. And not just C. I guess that kind of goes in with the like, I had a question that was like, what just happened at the end there with Gon? Like, because he got hit, though he did block it, it wasn't like I don't think it was an official clean hit that he's eliminated. The only thing I would have a question about was it did knock him out of off the court, and that's something they didn't explain either. That's the reason why I went back, because I wasn't sure if Gon was like out there. They never announced it, so I'm pretty sure that he's not been eliminated. Well, I just thought it was it was a question that I did have, because I was thinking, like, because he didn't get a clean hit on him, but he was not off the court, that could he have been eliminated, but no, I guess not. And also, he's just made it harder for himself by announcing to the world, like, that he is Gon, and because obviously he's questioned about like where Gene is. It's like, fucking, of course, Gene's just like, God, he's a madman. You can look at it from one perspective and be like, he's trying to fucking kill Gon. He's trying to kill his son. But I think it's more. I think the idea is that I think Gene knows the harshness of this world, and therefore it's kind of like a what doesn't kill you makes you stronger mentality. So he's basically making it like a tougher task for Gon than anyone else would have, because it would end up making him stronger in a way. It forces him to go all out and maybe think of a hell of a lot of different ways to combat against all of that sort of unfairness in a way. But But I think that's the thing that Gene's going with. I think it's like the life's not fair kind of thing. So basically, anything that could be as hard as it could possibly can be for for going to go up against, that's what Gene wants him to do. I think that's why at the very beginning when the first message that Gon heard off of Gene was like, if you don't want to see me, then turn it off. Like never want. Like that's it. But if you do want to, then continue watching or continue listening or whatever. I think it was kind of like a way of just basically saying like, like this is your chance to get out, like to not have to do it, like put up with this shit. But I mean, we're not gone. We know he was always going to do it, and just goes with his whole thing of like once he heard that the difficulty had literally improved, like Gon's face changed to a smile again. It's sort of laughing in the face of that that hardship in a way. It's like similar to Goku. Goku does it in Dragon Ball Z, where it's like the challenge is what makes it better. So the harder it could possibly be, the more like he's up for it, kind of thing. So yeah, we basically got everyone we needed at the very start. Notice there through the middle as well that like after Sesgera got knocked out, that like it went to a tiny little like sort of screen grab, like it was like a flashback of that. Like, that's something that they just skipped out on. I don't know how long they were training for, but apparently they were doing some kind of like almost like volleyball type fucking like training or whatever there. But yeah, Sesgera basically pointing out the fact that he got complacent and he hasn't really, his focus hasn't been on training, it's been on Greed Island the whole time. So yeah, but we had that Barry guy who won the boxing. I didn't even get the other names, but I wasn't expecting those guys to pick up wins. Like, you know what I mean? Because they were no names before this fucking episode, before they actually gave them names. And then I never, I was just thinking that maybe they're just not ready for it. But they were, and they all got their wins. And then that guy called Bobobo, who I just think he was like, he just thought he was the shit. Like, he got absolutely devastated by Killua once, and then he mentally fucking hurt him the second time when he just said, no, I'll lose, and gave up. And then the third time, God, just tries it again. I was not expecting fucking Reza to... It's not even a decapitation, it's just an evisceration of his head, and that was it. It was just gone. But then they give us the thing that they were death row inmates. And yeah, and also the likes of Gon, Killua, and Bisky all were given the revelation that it's not a game, it's actually within the real world. So yeah. Well, I think that's when Gon picked up on the whole thing of like, well, is Ging here then? Because I think maybe in Gon's mind that he wasn't in the game world, but if it is within the real world and he's someone that made the game, that he might be around here. That would obviously be a question that would come into his head, and it obviously did. Reza as well is a conjurer. I don't know if he must be. That has to be. He made 7 other fucking things. Like, they weren't clones, but I figure that has to be a conjurer, right? That does that, because I don't know what else it could be. I think what's his name has it as well, Goreno. I think because he used conjure, but he can also teleport with them as well. But I think that they're both conjurers, right? Like, that's both conjurer techniques. I'm trying to find it. I keep going all the way back. I did say I was going to put this like information about what like all the different classes are and what they do on like the back page or something, so just so I can easily get to it and not have to go through. But a conjurer is to manifest stuff. So the only thing I had a question about that is I thought that conjurer was the opposite way around, because enhancer's at the top. I think emitters to the well, if I'm looking at it from my point of view, it would be that way, but for you it would be that way, right? So I'm sure like enhancers at the top, then you have emitter and transmuter. I thought conjurer was on the transmuter side, which would mean that because he's clearly an emitter, meaning that if he's an emitter and a conjurer, like that's completely opposite ends of the spectrum, isn't it? Which means that they're not that, and the fact is he's doing it together, he's doing it all at once, which is even harder. So an emitter shouldn't really be able to be a conjurer to that degree. At least not that we've met anyway. Like, that's nuts. It has to be conjurer. There's no way that can be anything else, right? I don't think so. Unless manipulator, possibly. I suppose it could be a manipulator, and that would make more sense because that is right next to a emitter, right? Oh, I don't know. Because I feel like a lot of the time when there is a power of Nen that a character uses, generally you'll find that other people who are trying to get a gauge on what it is they're using tends to be like, well, it could be conjurer or it could be manipulator. Like, it's like those two have some similarities to certain things depending on what is. But conjurer is something that can just be like created out of, like, you know, manipulating something is manipulating one thing turning into another, right? Whereas conjurer is that's it, you're making it out of your aura, like other beings at that point. So it has to be conjurer. But then if it is, how is he doing it both at once? And I don't know. I could be wrong. I just think it looks and seems more like conjurer to me. But we know that he's an emitter. I don't know. I mean, I have said before in previous discussions that because he is one of the game designers, that he could be up there alongside Ging as like a really like, and then user sort of like I want to use the word specialist, but that wouldn't work because it's actually a specialist class. But I mean, like, he's that good with Nen that he is able to get that far around and use them like very well together, even though it's like rare. Because I think that was one of the first questions I had when Wing brought up that whole thing about like how, well, if you're an enhancer, then you know you're not going to be all that well versed with being a conjurer and a manipulator, because they're not next to each other in the sort of the fucking the diamond or whatever the hell it is. So, but I think, yeah, one of the first questions I did have was like, well, is it then possible to, if you're an enhancer, to go down the route of being an emitter and then a transmuter? I mean, we know that Gun's already starting that whole thing with the rock paper scissors thing, but then once he's like sort of mastered those two, would it then be the same as being an enhancer and going to transmuter if you're already that well versed at being a transmuter? Would it be the same, like trying to get round to conjurer and because I think it was something like it's better off because you only have one natural one, right? One natural class. I think that's it. I don't think if you're like gone an enhancer, but then you get like you master transmuter, I don't think it's the same from going into enhancer to transmuter. Like, I don't think it's as easy going from transmuter to conjurer at that point, you know, just because you've mastered transmuter. But I don't know, because in terms of like any skill within the real world, it would make sense that if you are, because the way I look at it is, the closer something is to the other class, like within the pyramid, means that it's almost like changing the way that you use your aura just a little bit in order to reach that point. So, for example, like there may be some techniques that are very similarly used between a transmuter and a conjurer, for example, you know, and therefore, if you know how to, you know, if you know a lot of techniques involving like transmuting and stuff, then maybe it's just a lot more easier. I'll probably liken it to like, it's not entirely the same, but like language. Like once you learn, like, you know, learning the first language, your first language is generally the hardest. But then once you start learning more languages, the easier it gets, because of like certain similarities within languages and stuff. And eventually, like, it just, you know, you get that sort of that mentality in your head of how to more easily pick up a language. So I figure like it might be something that way inclined. And if that is the case, then I would probably be right in saying that Reza is using conjuring there. But I don't know. I mean, you'll have to tell me, because I don't know if they'll ever bring up like Reza's like what he can use and what he is using and stuff. And if it's never brought up, then feel free to tell me in the the comments about what it is. But yeah. So yeah, right. That was a long tangent. Where the hell am I at? All right. So yeah, you can combine and split them together, which is absolutely fine as long as the same amount of remaining players are on the court at all times. Which that was a hell of a fucking cock block. I was like, you know what I mean? Yes, fucking Hisoka's gonna this is gonna be great. But then Reza already had a plan for something like that. But I guess in just increasing the mass, it means that like it's stronger altogether. So yeah, there may be a case where he like combines like 3 of them together for like one massive one. Who knows? Yeah. So when Sezgera got knocked out, Killua and Hisoka sort of were talking about how like, well, it wasn't even that they were talking. I love between the characters in this show like how, because they are smart enough to realize that all of the main players in the game. So in this regard, on the other team, on our team is like Gon, Killua, and Hisoka. I know Bisky's there, but she wasn't really involved a lot in this episode, I thought. But I'm sure she'll come up in the next one and do something crazy. But just for this example, like all of the characters don't have to say things out loud in order for other characters to get where they're going, because them characters are already trying to come up with the best possible plan. It all just kind of fits together in their head. It's like what I was saying during the reaction was that Gon and Killua like are so, it's like they're telepathically linked. Like they don't need to explain to the other person exactly what they should do in this situation, because they've already thought about it and then they do it at the exact same time. You know what I mean? Using Ken at the exact same time. It's great. I think it's not a case of them being telepathically linked. Obviously, I'm just saying that as like that's what it's like. Because I think they've hung around each other so much, and the fact that they're so similar in a hell of a lot of ways, but they aren't the same. It means that that it's always great when them two are like just together. Like them two as a partnership is great. It's one of the best things about the show. So yeah, but it's nice to see obviously Hisoka doing the exact same thing. Like even though he's not like, he's not been around Gon and Killua all that long. I think they're just smart enough to realize that this is exactly what we should be doing at this point, and yeah, it's cool. But they were saying that they'd established that if a player says back before they are struck, even if they're the last person on the court, it means that the game's still going because there's still one person left. However, there is only one back they can use, and that's going to be the question of who's that going to happen to? Because the fact that they've already established it, I don't see why that would not happen at this point. And I think it's going to happen to our team. I don't think it's going to happen to Reza's team, because Hisoka basically said, all right, that's it then. Leave Reza until the last one. Because I at the end of the day, it doesn't... I think the idea... Oh, actually, it might not be... That might not mean for our team than it may mean for Reza, because... If our team is purposefully keeping something hidden about like what they're planning to do at the end, as long as they have Reza on his own, if they're able to pull out a technique that catches them off guard, because that seems like the only way we're going to beat them is like by catching them off guard. That tends to be the case. If he is the last one in there, then that means that he would have no choice. Either he gets hit or he says back, or one of the other ones says back to get him out, and then at that point he can't come back onto the court. And I don't see like any one of the things that he's conjured up winning. You know what I mean? Because even though if that's the case and he has conjured them up, I don't think it's not going to be as much control that you have with your own body and like to put into something that you've created. You know what I mean? Like I think they're always going to be weaker than the original person actually giving it out. So that could be the case. Or not. It might not be. Who knows? For all we know, it might happen to both teams, and then we're just stuck with a one-on-one situation. If that's the case, then I could probably... I mean, if we're talking about like what would happen normally, like the tropey goodness that it is, it would probably be Gon versus Razor, right? If that is the case, but then that would mean that Razor would have to get out like at one point beforehand, and then he would be brought back on by somebody saying back. But yeah, this show isn't all that tropey though a lot, so it may not. It may be Hisoka last one on, in which case I would have no problem with it. I don't really, either way, it's just gonna be great as long as the last person isn't like, as long as the last person is one of the 4 that we have now. So who's already on there, I'll be fine with, because I'll be fine with Bisky being badass as well. So yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It could be either way. What they're talking about, the reason why you just want Razor there as the last person. I mean, I figured that would be the case anyway, because well, he's like the only real person there, so on their team. So he's like the boss. So I figured that would be the case. But yeah, we'll just have to wait and see. But yeah, that's all I've got. So thank you everyone for watching. In the description below I've linked certain things. One of them is the Discord, so you can get yourself over there. I also have a Patreon page as well, so if you do want to support me over on Patreon, that'd be very much appreciated. There is a bunch of different tiers and rewards depending on how much you want to support me with. So there's the early access tier, $5 a month. That gives you access to shows a week early, and you get 4 episodes of Hunter x Hunter every week. That's 2 on Monday and 2 on Friday, as opposed to the usual the YouTube general public that only get 2 episodes a week. So yeah, by the time this video actually goes out on YouTube for the general public, there will be a shit ton of episodes, like past episode 100, that you can go watch. So yeah, if you just want to pay £5 for 1 month, you'll be able to watch all of that stuff. So yeah, it's a good deal if you can't wait. But there's also other tiers there, like full length. There is tiers where you can pay to have a certain show reacted to as well, so you can go have a look at those. But that is all I've got. So thank you everyone for watching. I'll see you all next time. Bye bye.